Hey, what's up? It's Sep from Unison and welcome to part 2 of the Unison MIDI Blueprint preview series. Now, in the last video, we talked about one of the most important things that you have to do as a producer if you want to achieve any level of success, and that's finishing tracks consistently. Now, just to recap, there's a 3-step process that you can use to finish a track that brought me from my first track taking 3 months to make into a process that I now use to be able to finish any track in 3 days. And that's first the arrangement stage, where you lay out your track, you don't think, you don't judge, you lay it all out. The second day you come back, you do the fine tuning, you add those transitions, you replace sounds, and then finally, the third day you come back and do the mixing and mastering. So now that we've got that covered, in this video, I'm gonna go through one of the other important things that you have to do in order to get your tracks to be memorable so people want to listen to it over and over again. And that's creating a captivating melody. Now in a moment, we're actually going to jump into my computer and go through one of my original tracks, and I'm going to show you the MIDI, and we're going to go through exactly how I structured the melody and how I built it from scratch and my thought process behind it, so that you can apply that same strategy to your songs and be able to create more effective melodies that resonate with people and really get your ideas across with all the correct notes and ideal placement. So without further ado, let's jump into my computer and I'll walk you through this process. All right, so we're in one of my original tracks projects, Come a Little Closer. So I'm gonna walk you through the melody and explain how I built it and the 4-step process you can use to make effective melodies that make sense and that people wanna listen to over and over again. So before we begin, let me play the track for you. Just this break section so you can see what we're working with.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. Body on body, time to get naughty. Come a little closer to me now. Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. Body on body, to me now.
Cool, so let's begin. So the first thing I actually started this track with is actually recorded the vocals myself in my iPhone. I just got inspired and came up with this cool melody and lyrics. And then I brought it into the session, and then I made the bass line, then I built the chords, and then finally the pluck. So let's see how I used the bass line to really be effective with the vocals. So let's dive into the bass here. And a trick you can do if you're not familiar with music theory is you can map out your scale at the beginning of your MIDI clip and deactivate the notes. And every DAW has the function to fold, so then you're only going to use the right notes in the scale. So you're gonna want to know what key you're working in, and after that, if you don't know music theory, you can just Google the notes that you can use in the scale, map them out here, so then when you're experimenting with your bass lines, if you're programming them here, you'll know that all these notes that are listed here are the only ones that you can use in the scale, so you won't be playing any wrong notes. So let me show you what I thought sounded good, and then I'll play around with it to show you some other options that I could have done.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
So the reason why I put these 2 notes here is because I wanted to emphasize the come a little closer to me now. If you notice, the bass line changes exactly where the vocals are emphasized, which is a really cool thing you can do. Now, let me go through a couple other options that I could have done.
Look up and down.
So I could have changed the note here for more of a sad feel.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
So I could have done that. Another thing I could have done is maybe gone, let's try this.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
So that's more of a dark feel. So you can just play around with these notes and really see what fits the vibe of your melody. I would recommend that you come up with the melody first, either the top line if you're working with a vocal track, or if you're just working with a synth, come up with some kind of rough melody and then match up the bass line with it so it sounds good. So let me bring it back to what it was here. And then, so after we have something we're happy with, let's play the full phrase here.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. A little closer to me now. Body on body, time to get naughty. Come a little closer to me now.
So now I'll walk you through the chords that come on top. So you want to have usually 4 elements to your MIDI. You want to have the main melody, which can either be vocals or a synth. You want to have the bass line, some kind of chords, some held notes, and then some kind of extra spicy element. Like in this track, I use this pluck, but you could use a pad or strings, something to really finish it off. So let's go through the chords here and see how they meld in with the bass line, and I'll show you how I built them. So if you notice, the bottom note of the chords is the same as the bass line. So here's how you can build your chords in a really cool way. So I'll just delete this here. What you can do is copy, after you've done your bass line, you can copy paste it. So let's go to the chords here. So obviously it's way too low. So you're gonna wanna bring it up to the mid-range where chords should be playing. So that sounds about right. And then what you can do here to add the second note of the chord is copy it, move it up 7 semitones, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then paste the bottom note back, and then now you have the perfect fifth, which is 7 semitones, and it'll always sound good. So now let's see where we're at. So that's already sounding pretty cool. So in this case, since we're working with a minor chord here, a minor chord's second note is 3 semitones above the first one. So now what we can do is again copy paste the bass line, bring it up 1, 2, 3, and then paste it back. Now we have a 3-note chord. So this one's actually major chord, so let's bring that up. So as you can see, we have kind of like a basic chord. Now we want to really take it to the next level. So what you can do is play around with the voicing of the chords. So what we'll do here is take the second note of the chord and move it up above everything else. So that kind of creates a cool effect. You can hear a different note driving the chord. So that's already getting closer to what we're actually using for this track. Now to even take it further, since this note is held out for so long, what we can do is just change the top note to vary a bit throughout this sequence here. So I can just bring it down 1 note here. So you can see that variation really helps keep the melody interesting. And then we go into the second section, which I just did the exact same thing. I copied the bass line and switched around the notes a bit until I liked how it sounded. So let's hear the bass, chords, and vocals together here.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. Body Body on body, time to get naughty. Come a little closer.
So the final element of this melody is this pluck, which hits every eighth note. It's very consistent and it helps drive the melody and add that extra missing piece that it really needs something like this to finish off the melody and complete it. So let's see what I did here. So again, everything, all the elements I add, I reference it with the bass line, because the bass line is the foundation of the melody and you want everything to be consistent and match well with the bass line. And if it does, it'll usually match well with the other elements as well. So let's play the pluck here and the bass together. So what I did here was I took the root note of the key we're in. So we're in F sharp minor. So I started on F sharp, and as I said before, the second note in a minor chord is 3 semitones above the first one. So I experimented and I found this sounded really cool. So I just kept it like this, and then when the bass line changes, when the chord note goes down, also the pluck note goes down. So check it out all together here. So everything really melts together, and actually this is really cool. What I did here is the bass notes, I copy pasted them and moved them up octaves. So this really emphasizes that last bar of each phrase, and that's something you can do to keep your melodies interesting. You can emphasize the last bar, so then when you go to the next section, it's a bit of a break and a refreshment from the what's been playing before. So now let's put it all together and see where we're at.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. Body on body, time to get naughty. Come a little closer.
So that's how I structured this melody. Now there's tons of other options that I could have done. So let's go ahead and see some other options that I could have used here. So since we're, this is the Unison MIDI Blueprint, by the way. So since we're working in a house track, I'll just go to the house folder. And yeah, we basically studied all the top tracks and put all the appropriate chords that you could ever use in this genre inside this folder. So since we're in F sharp minor, I'll open up this folder here. And first, let's try dragging in a full progression into the chords and see if we like what we hear. So let's reference it with the vocals. I think this would actually sound pretty cool.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
It's actually really cool. So now what we can do next, after we drag in a chord progression or individual chords we like, is we can take the bottom note of the chords, copy it, and then paste it into the bass here. So let me delete this, post it into here, move it down to the bass octave, and then now check this out.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
And then I'm pretty sure the pluck should work as well, but we could also edit the notes.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
That doesn't work as well as it did before, but look at this. So if we wanted to change the pluck notes, we could copy the top two notes of the chords here. And once we have that, we can copy that. We can go ahead and delete this, paste it into the plucks, and create that same rhythm. So as you can see, the first one is going to be the same as what we had before, which is why it was working. So I'm just gonna copy paste this 4 times and then do the same thing over here. Make sure it's hitting every 8th note. copy paste this, boom. And this one's different from the original Pluck melody we had before. It should work better because we use the notes that are in the chord. So let's check this out. Copy paste that, and then the last bar here, do the same thing, shorten the note there, and copy paste it. So let's see what the Pluck sound like. It's an octave too high, so let's bring it down here and let's play it together.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
As you can see, that's beautiful. That worked really well. So it's really cool. Like, we just made an entirely different vibe to the same track using a different chord progression. And there's 25 chord progressions in both minor and major for every key, all studied from the top tracks. And also you get all the individual chords you could ever need. Like, look at all this stuff. So I could just go and mess around, just drag in these cool chords randomly, or you could preview them before. And like, this might not work as well, but let's see. I just picked some randomly, so let's just play the chords and the vocals and see how that sounds.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now.
So since they're all in the right key, it'll always sound good. Obviously some are more optimal for different situations, but this is really amazing. I really wish I had something like this when I was making this track and my other tracks, because it would really give me more options and broaden my perspective to really use stuff that I normally wouldn't use. So I'm pretty well versed in music theory, but we got Max to make this MIDI pack. He has a degree in music theory, so he knows all the crazy chords like these ones, like all the sus chords, major 7th, 9th, 11, all this really advanced stuff that probably, unless you have a really in-depth background in music theory, you wouldn't really have the ability to use these chords. So they're all here for you in every genre. So this was just house. There's all these options available for every chord, and this Unison MIDI Blueprint's coming out in 3 days now, so you'll be able to have a chance to get your copy. But the only thing is that there's only 2,000 copies that we're offering. Because this pack is so powerful, we really want to have producers who are really serious about taking their music to the next level and really achieving success as a music producer, whatever that means to you. Whether you just want to make your tracks, melodies more effective so that you don't use any wrong notes and everything's optimized to be the most memorable and captivating, whether you're really getting stuck a lot, which was a huge problem for me. Like, if I had this back in the day, if I got stuck on this track, I would literally be able to just go in the folder and drag in some chords and re-spark that inspiration to finish the track. So another really cool thing you can do is actually, like, this is probably one of the coolest things you can do with this pack, especially if you're advanced and you've hit a plateau and the stuff you're using has gotten stale. You can go into a completely different genre. So for example, let's go into the jazz genre and try using a jazz chord in a house track, which we'll see if it turns out cool. So I'll just pick one of these here, drag it in. Wow, it's a really long one, so that this is going to be cool actually. So let's check this out.
Look up and down, no one's around. Come a little closer to me now. Body on body, time to get naughty. Come a little closer to me now.
So that's like, this is a crazy progression. Like, look at all this stuff. So you could easily just go into any genre of music, pick out some new chord progressions, really experiment and come up with something new that nobody's ever heard before. So yeah, that's the 4-step process to creating a melody that's captivating. First, you want to create the bass line, match it up with your top line, use the bass line notes to create the chords, and then add some kind of final touch elements such as a pluck, arpeggio, or pad, or strings. Or you could do it the other way around, which is easier. You could just drag in a chord progression and then use the bass notes from there, copy paste it into that, and then use the top 2 notes or some other notes used in the chords for that final touch element. All right, so that's video 2. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you use this 4-step strategy to be able to create captivating melodies that you can use to make your tracks memorable, to make people want to listen to your tracks over and over again, and to be able to really optimize and make melodies quickly and efficiently. Now, if you have any questions, please leave them below. I'll answer them myself. Every single question that you have, I'll go through and reply. So please leave those below. And the Unison MIDI Blueprint is coming out in 3 days. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be sending out an email as soon as it's live. But there's one thing that I have to tell you, and that is that this pack is so powerful that we have to limit it to the amount of producers that can have access to it. So we're limiting it to 2,000 copies. And just based on the fact that over 8,000 people got our MIDI chord pack, these copies will sell out very fast. And you're gonna wanna keep an eye out for the email as soon as it's released so you can come and pick up your copy before they're gone. And there's also gonna be 5 special bonuses that you can pick up for the first week after the release. Although I'm pretty sure that the copies will sell out within that first week as well. But there's over $1,200 of bonuses that you can get if you pick up your copy within that first week. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep an eye out for the release of the Unison MIDI Blueprint and take it easy.